Imagine getting denied a room in a hotel you own because you didn't look the part. That's exactly what happened to her. It had been a long day, the kind of day that settles in your shoulders and lingers in your lower back. Danielle Monroe wasn't one to complain, though. She'd visited 2 properties that morning in Savannah, then sat through back-to-back meetings with regional leadership, and finally drove herself 2 hours north to Charleston to wrap up the day with an unannounced inspection of the newest hotel in her chain. She didn't wear heels or a power suit, no designer handbag, just black sneakers, fitted jeans, and a charcoal hoodie zipped up halfway. Her curls were pulled into a low puff, and she wore no makeup. Her eyes, a little tired, scanned the building with quiet focus. Danielle believed in seeing her hotels the way her guests saw them. No special treatment, no announcements, just the raw experience. She walked through the sliding doors of the Kings Row Hotel on Calhoun Street. The lobby was modern, glass fixtures, velvet couches, and an art wall featuring photographs of Charleston's rich history. Everything looked clean, quiet, professional. Behind the front desk stood a young man, early 20s, light brown hair, button-down shirt. He barely looked up. Danielle cleared her throat gently. "Hi," she said, offering a polite smile. "I have a reservation. Monroe." The clerk didn't smile back. He looked her up and down once, then back at his screen. "What's the first name?" he asked, tone flat. "Danielle." Click, click. His fingers tapped at the keyboard. "I don't see anything under that name," he replied. Danielle nodded slowly, still calm. "Try D. King. It's under a corporate block. Should be a suite, king-level floor." Click tap, his brow furrowed. "There's a D. King reservation," he said. "But, that doesn't look like it's for you." Danielle tilted her head slightly. "What does that mean?" The clerk hesitated, clearly unsure how far he could go. "It's reserved for someone in the corporate division," he said, voice dropping a little, like she wasn't supposed to know that. Danielle waited, then smiled faintly. "Right, that's me." He blinked. "You're with corporate?" "I am. I'm actually the—" He cut her off. "I'm gonna have to call my manager." He turned away before she could finish her sentence. Danielle looked around. A couple sitting near the lobby bar turned to glance at her. Her skin prickled, not from embarrassment, but from familiarity. This wasn't new. A tall woman in her 40s emerged from the office behind the desk, tan slacks, burgundy blouse, clipboard in hand. She whispered something to the clerk, who gestured toward Danielle with his chin. The manager approached with tight lips and a stiff smile. "Ma'am, I understand you're trying to check into a corporate suite." "I'm not trying," Danielle said, her voice still soft. "I am checking in. Reservation is under D. King. That's a block I authorized myself." The manager crossed her arms. "And who exactly are you with?" Danielle sighed, her patience thinning but still intact. "I'm with Monroe Hospitality Group. I'm the CEO." The manager's eyebrows lifted just enough to betray doubt. "Do you have any ID?" Danielle reached into her bag, pulled out her wallet, and handed over her license and business card. The manager glanced at them, then back at Danielle, like it still didn't quite add up. Then she said it. The sentence Danielle had heard in too many variations over too many years. "You don't look like a CEO." There it was. Danielle raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. The manager handed back her ID and smiled, tight and unconvincing. "Let me just double-check a few things. Would you mind waiting over there by the window?" Danielle didn't move. "I'll stand right here." The clerk was staring now. A security officer from the hallway near the elevators had started to walk over. Danielle could feel it all tightening, like air being slowly sucked out of the room. But she didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch. She just watched and waited while the temperature of the room changed. The security guard stopped a few feet from Danielle, his eyes flicking between her and the front desk. He wasn't aggressive, not yet, but he was clearly sizing her up like she was a question mark in his lobby. "You need something, ma'am?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Danielle turned toward him slowly. "No, I'm just waiting for the front desk manager to confirm my reservation." The front desk clerk chimed in, louder than necessary. "She's trying to check into the corporate suite. Says she's the CEO." The guard looked at Danielle again. His posture shifted just slightly, more alert. He rested one hand on his belt, not on his weapon, but close enough to send a message. Danielle kept her voice calm. Is there a reason I'm being questioned by hotel security for checking into a room I reserved? The manager reappeared from the back office, holding a phone in one hand and a printed sheet in the other. She approached Danielle with a forced, polite tone. Okay, Ms. Monroe, I did see your name connected to the Monroe Group, but typically, these reservations are handled through a travel coordinator. Without prior notice or official documentation from your office, I really can't release that suite. Danielle blinked. Are you suggesting I forged my own reservation? No, not saying that, the manager said, backpedaling. But you have to understand, we follow a protocol, and you showing up, without warning, in jeans and a hoodie, it's just a little irregular. Danielle gave her a hard look. Is it irregular because I didn't send a memo? Or is it irregular because I'm not what you expected a CEO to look like? The manager opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The clerk shifted awkwardly. Even the security guard took half a step back. Danielle exhaled slowly. This is my hotel. My company built it. My team trained the staff. That suite was reserved to assess your team's professionalism and service. Congratulations, you just failed. The room fell quiet, but instead of doubling down, the manager's eyes narrowed like she was waiting for a gotcha moment. I'd still like to confirm with someone at corporate, she said. Just to be sure. Danielle tilted her head. You want to call my office? Yes. Okay, Danielle said, her expression unreadable. Go ahead. The manager turned back toward the office. Danielle waited a beat, then added, when you get my assistant on the line, ask her what happens when a team disrespects a senior executive during a mystery inspection. The manager hesitated mid-step. I'll wait here, Danielle said quietly. The security officer cleared his throat. Ma'am, if you could just step outside while they confirm, this really isn't necessary. Danielle turned her full attention to him now. What isn't necessary? Me standing here or me being in this hotel at all? He looked uncomfortable, like he hadn't thought it through before speaking. Danielle slung her bag over her shoulder. You know what? I'll step outside. I could use some air. She walked slowly toward the glass doors. Her sneakers made soft contact with the polished floor, every step louder than the silence behind her. Out on the sidewalk, she pulled out her phone. One number, no hesitation. Janae, she said when her assistant picked up, I need you to call William and tell him to contact the Charleston Kings Row Hotel right now. Use the internal line. Pause. Yes, they're playing with the wrong one. She ended the call and stared through the glass. Inside, the front desk staff were huddled, whispering. The manager was dialing a number with her back turned. Danielle didn't feel angry. She felt steady. This wasn't the first time. Wouldn't be the last. But it was going to be the last time here, because what they didn't know was that the call they were waiting to make had already been made. Inside the hotel, the manager waited impatiently for someone to pick up. She tapped her manicured nails against the countertop as the front desk clerk hovered nearby, trying not to look nervous. When the line finally connected, she straightened up. Hi, yes. This is Pamela Jones, the assistant manager at the Charleston Kings Row. I'm calling to verify a walk-in guest claiming to be a corporate executive. Danielle Monroe. The voice on the other end was quiet at first, then sharp. Wait, did you say Danielle Monroe? Yes, she says she's the CEO. A pause, then the voice came back louder. You mean the Danielle Monroe whose name is on your pay stub? The one who owns the Monroe Group, that owns the Kings Row brand? Pamela froze. The voice didn't stop. Put me on speaker, now. She fumbled with the phone, clicking the speaker icon. The front desk clerk stiffened as the voice rang out into the lobby. This is William Langston, Vice President of Operations. Who am I speaking to again? Pamela, Assistant Manager, she said, her throat dry. Pamela, William said, voice low now, but surgical. Why exactly is the CEO of the company standing outside her own hotel right now? Why was she not only refused a room, but met with security? Pamela glanced toward the glass doors where Danielle was still calmly waiting. I wasn't sure it was really her. And so you decided what? That she didn't look the part. The clerk stepped back, pretending to reorganize brochures. Pamela was out there alone now. William continued. Tell me, did she raise her voice? No. Did she threaten anyone? No. Did she do anything other than give you her name and ask for the room that was reserved for her? Pamela swallowed. No. Silence. Good, William said, because now you're going to walk your ass outside and apologize to her. Not tomorrow. Not after lunch. Right now. And then you're going to offer her anything she wants and hope she doesn't decide to make this your last day in hospitality. Pamela glanced at the security guard, who had wandered back toward the elevator but was clearly listening. She looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. Do you understand me? William snapped. Yes, sir. The line went dead. Pamela stood there for a second, her skin suddenly feeling too tight for her body. Outside, Danielle was calmly scrolling her phone. The manager approached the door, opened it, and stepped out. Ms. Monroe. Danielle looked up, unfazed. I want to sincerely apologize. There was clearly a major misunderstanding. Your suite is ready. I'd be more than happy to... Danielle stood slowly. You've confirmed who I am? Yes, of course. I spoke with corporate. Not just corporate. You spoke with William. Pamela nodded sheepishly. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Danielle gave a slow, dry laugh. Isn't it funny? 10 minutes ago, I was just a woman in a hoodie who couldn't possibly belong here. Pamela opened her mouth, but Danielle raised a hand. No, I'm not in the mood for excuses. I'm in the mood for accountability. Danielle walked past her and back into the lobby. The clerk looked up, then quickly down. As she reached the desk, another man walked in. Sharp gray suit, leather folder in hand, a Bluetooth in his ear. He was black, mid-40s, and walked like someone who solved problems for a living. Danielle, he said, approaching with a half smile. You all right? Danielle nodded. They're learning. William briefed me, he said, glancing toward the front desk. Let's get you checked in and make a few things very clear to this team. Danielle looked around the lobby, at the staff who had questioned her, the guard who had hovered too close, the guests who had watched without a word. Let's. Because this wasn't just about a room anymore. This was about what happened when respect came after recognition, and never before. Danielle didn't walk back in like someone demanding power. She walked in like someone who already had it, and knew exactly what it was worth. The man beside her was Julian Barrett, a senior operations director, cool under pressure, razor sharp with details. He'd flown down from Charlotte the moment William Langston called. That's how serious this had gotten in less than 30 minutes. Pamela, the assistant manager, tried to salvage what she could. We've upgraded the suite, of course, sent up a fruit tray, bottle of champagne. Anything else you need, Ms. Monroe? It's yours. Danielle didn't even look at her. Julian turned to the front desk clerk. What's your name? Brandon, the young man answered, shrinking into himself. Julian gave him a long look. You ever Google who signs your checks? Brandon shook his head, cheeks burning. Julian pulled a printed email from his folder and slid it across the desk. This is a memo from 2 weeks ago, company-wide, stating that Ms. Monroe would be doing unannounced evaluations at several of our properties. Pamela's face flushed red. She had seen that memo. She just didn't think this woman could possibly be the one behind it. Y'all had one job, Julian said, looking around the lobby. Treat every guest with respect. That's not just hospitality. That's basic humanity. Danielle folded her arms. The thing that gets me, she said, loud enough for everyone behind the desk to hear, is that I didn't even ask for special treatment. I didn't say, I'm the boss. I didn't ask for favors. I asked to be treated like a regular guest. She turned slowly toward Pamela. But you couldn't even give me that. Pamela opened her mouth to say something, maybe to defend herself. But Julian stepped in. Don't. Just don't. From the corner of the lobby, the security officer stood silent. He looked uncomfortable now, like maybe the reality of what he'd participated in was sinking in. Just then, another figure entered the hotel, Kendra Willis, regional HR manager, slim, serious, and always dressed like she might be called to a courtroom at any moment. She walked straight up to Danielle and Julian. Got the footage, she said, holding up a USB drive. Security cams, audio at the desk. It's not a good look. Danielle's mouth twitched. It rarely is. Kendra turned to Pamela and Brandon. I'll need you both in the office. Now. Pamela nodded, her voice cracking. Of course. Kendra added, bring your side of the story and make it the truth, because the cameras already told theirs. Danielle walked over to a nearby chair and sat down slowly, finally resting. Julian stood beside her while Kendra ushered the staff into the back office. "You okay?" Julian asked softly. Danielle looked tired, but steady. "I'm fine. I'm just tired of the script. It's old. You'd think one of them would change the ending by now." Julian gave a half smile. "Not with people who only know how to read the cover." Danielle leaned back, staring up at the chandelier. "They thought I didn't belong here, that I was in the wrong place, but they never stopped to think maybe they were." A few minutes passed. Guests came and went, sensing something off in the air, but not knowing what. The mood had shifted. You could feel it, even if no one was saying it out loud. Finally, Kendra came back. "They'll need to complete sensitivity and anti-bias training," she said. "Effective immediately. Brandon's on probation. Pamela—" She paused. "We're still deciding." Julian nodded. "Good." Danielle stood again. "I want every manager across this brand reminded, your bias is your liability. And if they're going to misjudge someone, they better hope it's not the person signing their checks. Because while a room can be cleaned, reputations take longer, and this one was already stained." Danielle didn't want revenge. She wanted clarity. By the next morning, word had spread, not just through the hotel, but across every Monroe hospitality property from Jacksonville to D.C. There'd been an emergency leadership call at 7 o'clock a.m., mandatory. Every general manager logged in, and every single one of them heard the same thing. Our CEO was profiled and denied access to her own suite. If it can happen to her, it can happen to your guests. If you can't lead with integrity and respect, pack your things. Back in Charleston, Danielle requested a staff meeting in the hotel's small conference room. Not corporate, not formal, no script, just people. The front desk team sat on one side of the long table, housekeeping, maintenance, and bar staff on the other. Most of them weren't directly involved, but they'd heard enough whispers to know something serious had happened. Danielle walked in quietly. No blazer, no entourage, just a plain black top and slacks. She stood at the head of the table. "Morning," she said. A few voices responded back, soft, cautious. She nodded. "I'm Danielle Monroe. For those of you who've never met me, now you have." She paused, letting that settle. "Yesterday, I came to this hotel to see how things were running, not as your CEO, but as a guest. I didn't tell anyone I was coming because I wanted to see the truth, not the version you clean up when corporate's around." Her voice was calm, measured, but no less powerful. "What I experienced was not just disrespect, it was judgment, based on how I looked, based on what you assumed I wasn't." She looked straight at Pamela, who sat rigid, her lips pressed thin. "I want to be clear. This isn't about me being offended. I've had worse thrown at me on my way to building this company. This is about a culture that lets assumptions override professionalism." Danielle turned to the rest of the staff. "You want to know how I built this business? I listened. I showed up. I treated people like they mattered, no matter what they looked like. That's it. That's the whole formula." The room was still, then someone raised their hand. A housekeeper in her late 50s with silver braids tucked into a bun. Her name tag read Loretta. "Can I say something?" she asked. Danielle nodded. "I've worked here since the doors opened, and I ain't never seen you in person before, but I always said, whoever's behind this place, they had to care. You can feel it in the details, the towels, the way we're trained to talk to people, how we clean like we're cleaning our own homes. That all comes from the top." Loretta looked down at the table. "I'm sorry they did you like that. That ain't how we all are." Danielle smiled gently. "Thank you, Loretta. I know. That's why I'm here, to make sure the good people don't get buried under the bad habits." She let out a slow breath. "There's going to be changes, not just here, but across every single Monroe property. We're reevaluating hiring. We're doubling down on anti-bias training. And more than anything, we're reminding every employee that judgment is not part of your job." Pamela shifted uncomfortably. Danielle turned to her. "You still have a choice. You can grow from this, or you can pack up. But what you can't do is pretend it didn't happen." Pamela's voice came out small. I want to stay. I want to do better." Danielle didn't smile, but she nodded. "We'll see. Julian, standing at the back of the room, checked his phone and stepped forward. You've got media requests coming in. Some of the employees posted on TikTok. It's already gone viral. Danielle sighed, like someone used to being the story, but tired of being this kind of story. I'll deal with it, she said. She looked around one last time at the faces in the room. Don't treat people right because you might get caught. Treat them right because that's the job. She turned and walked out. Because real leadership doesn't make noise. It leaves impact, quiet, lasting, and impossible to ignore. Danielle didn't speak to the press. She didn't need to. By that afternoon, news outlets had picked up the story from a shaky phone video one of the staff had secretly recorded, Danielle standing calmly as a manager doubted her, then walking away without raising her voice. The headline, Black CEO denied room in her own hotel, stays graceful, but sets the record straight. By the next morning, Monroe Hospitality's inbox was flooded. Some were angry, some embarrassed. Some wanted to applaud. But the message was clear. People were watching. And they weren't just watching the guests. They were watching the leaders. Pamela stepped down later that week. Brandon remained on probation, undergoing full retraining with HR. Security staff were pulled into a broader review process across the region, not as punishment, but as a reckoning. A mirror held up. Meanwhile, Danielle stayed in Charleston 3 more days, not in silence, but in motion. She walked every floor, spoke to the cleaning crews, ate breakfast in the lobby with regular guests. No press, no cameras, just presence. That Friday morning, she stood alone in front of the framed plaque at the hotel's entrance, the one she'd approved months earlier when construction finished. Her name, etched in bronze at the bottom. Danielle Monroe, founder and CEO, in honor of every guest who deserves to feel welcome. A guest walked by and paused. Mid-50s, dark blazer. He glanced at the plaque, then at Danielle, then did a small double take. You her? He asked, pointing at the name. Danielle gave a tired smile. Yeah, that's me. He blinked. Wow, well, damn. No offense, but I wouldn't have guessed. Danielle nodded slowly. Most don't. He laughed awkwardly. Well, this is a hell of a hotel. She nodded again. That's the goal. He moved on. Danielle stayed where she was. Julian joined her a minute later. You think they'll learn from this? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I don't care if they remember me. I care if they remember what happened. He nodded. They will. She turned from the plaque and picked up her suitcase. Time to catch her flight. As they walked through the lobby, a young black woman behind the front desk looked up. Not Brandon, someone new. Maybe just hired. She gave Danielle a tiny smile and a respectful nod. Danielle smiled back. The kind of smile that says, I see you. You belong here. And this time, no one questioned it, because sometimes the loudest message is the one you never raise your voice to deliver. Sometimes the most powerful move is staying still long enough for people to see the truth for what it is. She didn't burn the place down. She lit it up. So next time someone looks at you and says, you don't look like, let them finish the sentence. Then go ahead and finish the story. If you've ever been judged before you had the chance to speak, before your name, your work, or your truth had the chance to show up, remember this. You don't owe anyone proof of who you are just to earn basic respect. But if they make you prove it anyway, make sure they never forget what happens when they get it wrong.